Today, I just wanted us to be a community. Just go ahead and raise your digital hand if you want to share your story.
My story is that I went to a spa and wanted to have a luxurious experience at home. So I bought an expensive shower head to have like that sprinkly spa until I got a satanic shoulder cramp after training, and no pill would do, no meditation, no affirmation would help that cramp. So I restored to my old school dancing tricks and I unscrewed the the shower head so the pipeline falls directly. I turn on the boiler maximum temperature, and that was like the immediate relief for my shoulder cramp. And then I realized like that is hydrotherapy, like you get like high pressure water. So sometimes you have to go for the spa experience that it's not only flashy, but it's effective.
Well, you know what? Last week we had to do homework for my little kid for the kindergarten. We have to create a doll so they can start to learn about the body. So we were at home on last Sunday, and it was just like 10 o'clock in the night, just like, hey, we forgot about the homework. So we started to do what are we gonna do? So I reached out to one of my aunts and say, hey, can we crash at your place so we can create a doll? You have some stuff there? Yeah, of course, come. We get there and we start to see how can we create a doll for my little kid. And me and my wife start to look for scrap things, just like little pieces of colors and wood and stuff to create it. And my little one was just like running around, seeing how we create that. And suddenly we were playing. We were just like, hey, we can add up this piece. And then I got a power drill so I can do the holes. And he was contemplating the process. And we were so into the process that we forgot about the homework and the result. So we were so into it, just like, hey, we can do this and we can do that. And suddenly Mario was born. And I said, and I'm saying Mario because that's the name my little kid gave to this doll. And it was amazing how he was so flabbergasted when he got this little toy, and his eyes were just like, what is this? And he started to play with the doll, and he was just like running around the house with, hey, this is Mario and I have a doll. And that moment I realized, shit, at least for me, that's what life about. I remember how awesome it feels to create something from the playful state, just to play. And for the first time, I felt that I gave my son something to treasure and to remember that has nothing to do with material stuff. Just like, that's special, something made from and with love. That was kind of, like these little Easter eggs in life. Just like I discovered something that's so freaking valuable about enjoy the process, have fun, and let magic happen after trying stuff.
That's exactly what happens to me every time. Whenever I plan out something too much and try to stick to that, it doesn't go well. The best stuff that came out of Night Owl Nation was all the unplanned stuff.
Your stories remind me of the movie Soul from Pixar. I don't know if you've watched it, but there is
Soul, yeah.
Soul, yeah. There's when he did the piano and his inspiration told him about the fish's story, that she was looking for the sea, for the ocean, and the other fish was like, this is it. And the fish said, this is water. This is not the ocean, right? So we have everything at our hands. We just don't know. So the story I want to tell, I haven't told in a group or anything, but I just remember and I thought I would share. So I think by now, most of you know I've traveled, lived in many places. And I remember I was talking, so I went to university, my undergrad here in Ottawa, not in Toronto. I landed in Toronto, everything was like so multicultural diversity. Then I went to Ottawa and it's a different experience. And then I was talking to my prof, we kind of friends. And we were talking about like the challenges like international students and immigrants face in Canada in space that's not comfortable, etc. And then she asked me if she as a person visited my country, would she feel welcomed or not? And I was like, of course you will. Because we were colonized by UK or British for so long, any white person would be welcome. That was my idea, right? And because the Sudanese people, they're known in the whole world to be, in the Middle East. I know the whole world doesn't know us yet, but the Middle East would tell you that we're kind, we welcome anyone. If you come into any house, like we'll prepare you a feast, blah, 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 right? And, I have had many experiences being the new odd person in a school or in a country, blah, blah, blah. And some people welcome me, others don't like me for my accent, how I look, etc. For many reasons, there are the reasons, so I don't care. Until one day I was talking to my friend back home. She's my best friend. And we went, because I attended 2 undergrad. It was my first undergrad there. And, I know her. She's a very, in my opinion, until that moment, she's a, very open-minded person. We talk about everything, women issues, I don't know, great person. And that happened during the war in Syria. And Sudan at that moment had many Syrian refugees. And I've been out of Sudan for 11 years or so, right? So I kind of lost the connection. I didn't go back. So many things happened until the war right now, if you know anything about it. And then my friend said, she was telling me a story about her husband's town in which I think a group of Syrian refugees went there. And there was a space unused in the town. And what they did, very brilliantly, they're great at business. They made a bazaar or a local market, and it succeeded. And I was like, wow, but she was angry. And I was like, why are you angry? But no, I didn't say, why are you angry? I said, she was talking about it. And my reaction was they're so smart. They're smart in business. And she said, no, the Sudanese people are stupid. And I said, because they didn't make the business first? She said, no, because they allow them to take their space and make that business. And that reminded me, being here in Canada, and some people are telling me I stole their jobs. And that was a shock to me, to have a friend from the same race, same ethnical group. Probably if she traveled anywhere in the world, she would be in hell in so many places. She would face so many things, right? And I just realized, I don't think we are different. I don't think we're that different anywhere in the world. I think we're all the same in a different way.
Thank you for sharing. Sometimes I talk to one of my old friends and I realize how differently we think, right? And I don't know if that's from growing up in different culture for so long, or maybe I just didn't know that person or something like that.
I love the idea of everything that is just ordinary is really what makes things extraordinary. That we're always looking for the extraordinary and the special, but it really is to be found in every day. And so I remember when I was a little girl, we did not have a lot of money growing up. And when we had a birthday party, my mom and dad would always want to make it really special for us. But it would always be homemade. Everything was homemade. There's a homemade cake. And I can remember asking for the Pepperidge Farm frozen cake because that was special. And they were always like, no, we don't buy cakes at the store. We make our cakes. It was probably, $2 at the time, but that was still too fancy, but it wasn't like they were saying it was pretentious to buy your cake. It was just, that was the way we did things. It was all homegrown. And so I remember this one birthday, my father had built, he had a tractor and he used it to do work around our house. And he had built a sled for the tractor out of wood. My dad is like MacGyver. He can make anything into anything out of anything. And so he built this thing that he would drag along the back of his tractor, and he filled it up with hay, like a hay ride. So we were going to do a homemade hay ride. I didn't really even know what this was because I'd never been on a hay ride, but he created this for me and my friends. And so my little friends came over. I was probably about 8 years old, maybe 7 or 8. And we all got into this little sled on the hay, and he dragged the sled through the fields and took us on a little ride. And this was the party. We all just went on a little ride in this little sled that was dragging along the ground. And then I thought that was it. I thought, this is great. This is the best party of all time. And we get to the woods, and near my house, there was a pine forest. And a pine forest is kind of special because the trees grow very, very tall, the pine trees. And the inside of the pine forest feels like you're in a room. And the floor is all these soft pine needles. It's very dark and mysterious and beautiful. So he drags us into this pine forest, and the trees grow kind of in rows. No one plants them that way. I think it's kind of a natural phenomenon. So we're in this pine forest. He drives us in there, and we bring the sleigh up, and he says, okay, everybody, let's get out and we can walk around a little bit. So all the kids get out, and we walk over, and on the trees, my father, it's making me tear up. My father had hung up all of these lollipops. And it was like this magical lollipop forest that he made for my birthday party. It was like, it's one of the best moments of my life. And it was such a beautiful thing. I was like so overjoyed, and all my friends thought it was fantastic. It was like, kids did not have parties at, Chuck E. Cheese when I was growing up. It was homegrown stuff. It was fantastic. And then if that wasn't wonderful enough, I would say about 5 years ago, we had a family birthday party. My sister and my dad, my mom had passed away by this time, and my sister and my dad were having a family dinner for me. And at the dinner, we were just having our dinner or whatever, eating. And then my sister's like, let's take a walk up back. So we take a walk up to the backyard of my father's house where we grew up, and she had hung all these lollipops on a tree for me. And it was just so beautiful. It's like, that means so much more to me than anything else they could have done. They could have bought me a Chanel purse, and it wouldn't have meant even a fraction of what that meant to me. So I just was reminded of that story. So thank you.
My story is focused on a lesson in vulnerability, how you can use your embarrassments to really connect with people, which, we're all sharing stories here. So I'm sure many of you can probably relate to this, but, I used to hide embarrassing moments because I didn't want people to judge me in my professional network. And I just, I wanted to hide things. I wanted to hide things that I didn't do or vulnerabilities that I had. So I work a lot of conferences within production. And there was one particular conference that I was going back and forth between the artist suites and the stadium, back and forth, right, with my team. And I remember I was in the artist suite, and I had went to get one of my team members, right? And as I'm doing this, I'm so distracted that I run straight into a glass wall. Boom, straight into a glass wall. Face just plasters right in there. It's like a room of 10 people, guys. People see you when you do that. When you plaster your face on a glass wall, people see that. And I noticed out of the corner of my eye that somebody shot over and looked at me as I shrugged my shoulders and just kind of like went about my way. And I gathered myself out on the balcony, just to realize that I was in a room full of, people within my network. And I just looked absolutely ridiculous. So I gathered myself. I went back inside, and I went to grab a muffin, and the person that saw me walked right up next to me, and I knew exactly who it was. So I took a deep breath in, and I turned to him, and without hesitation, I turned to Neil Patrick Harris, and I said, "Hi, I'm John Cater, the guy who just plastered his face on the wall." And we laughed, and we had like a really funny moment here. And he was like, "Oh, I'm Neil. How's it going?" And then we just had really just level conversation that was, there wasn't ego attached. There wasn't any worries. And it was really personable. Now, though we don't all have that moment of the Neil Patrick Harris, what I do want to say is that we all have moments that, make us human. And so those moments, those embarrassments, those maybe you're not afraid to share something, maybe you're not afraid to, maybe you're afraid to do a piece of content or get a little vulnerable with somebody, but you might find that you're able to connect with somebody a little bit better when you lean into those embarrassments, because they make us a little bit more relatable.
I had a moment like that with the CEO of my company at my first job. And this is a huge company, right? And he was talking about how he was going to the Hamptons and he was talking about smoking weed. And then I got to talking about smoking weed, and then he asked me if I could get him some weed. And then he told me how at night when his teenage kids go to sleep, him and his wife will go for a walk in the park and smoke a joint or something like that. And that's when I kind of realized we're all just human.
So this story that I want to share, it's me going back and trying to remember. It's week 8. Week 8 was about vulnerability, right? And about my clients' pain points, right? And I'm my first language is English, born and raised in the DC area. And so it's hard for me. So sometimes I feel like the story I'm about to tell is not my story, but I'm a part of it. So it feels a little bit fictitious because I don't actually know what's inside the person's head. I have this written out because I'm still working on telling stories authentically, or just from memory. So just bear with me. I'm going to read it. Okay. I titled the story "The Shoes." So my fictional roommate's name, Lucia. She's a real person, but I changed the name. So Lucia had moved to a new city to study biology. She got an internship working at a lab of a prestigious university. She had found an affordable apartment share at a good price, close to transportation, with 3 other women. I was one of those women. Only one of the roommates was fluent in Italian, but she was also the one roommate who was never home. She was brilliant, well educated in math and sciences, but her English was limited. Lucia got on well enough with her roommates. They were all pretty busy with working and boyfriends of their own. She would talk with them as best as she could in passing. She understood much more than she could speak. So one day, Lucia had bought a pair of gray sneakers from a store downtown. She had tried them on in her apartment, but they pinched at the heel of her foot. Her roommate walks in and sees her trying on the uncomfortable pair of shoes. Her roommate says, so that's me, "I like those shoes, Lucia." She thinks in Italian. This is her thinking in Italian. "I just bought these shoes. They feel terrible on my feet. I can sell them to you if you like them." So that's what she thinks in her head, right? But the words that came out of her mouth are, "Shoes no good, you take." That's, So then her roommate, with a grateful look, takes the shoes from her hand, hugs her, and is off to her room. She is left standing there speechless, not having the words to express how she would have liked some money for the shoes. So sometimes the voice in your head does not sound like the voice that comes out of your mouth. It may be like when you start to learn English, but soon you can get those 2 voices to come together. So I was I don't really know if that is what happened. Do you know what I mean? But I think when I think back to it,
I actually like it better. I actually like it. Maybe she didn't think that at all, but I like it better because it shows me what was going in your head, and that's so vulnerable, right?
John really reminded me of something that happened to me, and I have proof of it. You can see my scar here. It's from a door. So I was just being promoted to this general manager, when I was working in a corporate thing. And I was there, and I used to keep working really, really late because I was a manager, I had to do a lot of things. And I was there, and we had this new office, brand new, and we don't have a door. So it was just like, okay, that's cool. And I will run my way out just because it was super late. I hasn't eaten, whatever. I will run every time. So I went out of my office, turn off the lights, and run. Literally run. But I wasn't aware that they had put the door that day. The glass door, the office. Yeah. No one told me because no one knew that I was there. So maybe they were 3 or 4 people in the office because it was really late, like 11 p.m. or 12 at night. So I went out running from my office and I slammed my face through the door. And I got this scar and it almost made me fall down. But the sound was so hard that the people on the other offices came out just to see what had happened. And I was just like, totally knocked out. And what I learned is I have to stop. I mean, literally, the universe stopped me on my tracks. So that's what I learned.
My name's Aaron. I've only been here maybe about 2-3 weeks now with you guys. And so I'm excited to start the next quarter. So I'm still figuring this out. So bear with me if it doesn't go fantastic. So I took a head coach job about 7 or 8 years ago, head soccer coach job. I've played soccer my whole life, loved it. Through that time of playing and coaching, I've met a lot of fantastic different cultures because it's a very hotbed of just everyone plays the game and everyone, lots of different cultures I've got to experience. And so as I come into this head coach position, I was invited by one of my athletes, one of the players on my team, to her quinceañera. And I've never been to a quinceañera. I've never been invited to a quinceañera. I don't know what to expect in a quinceañera. I don't even know what I'm supposed to wear to a quinceañera. And so I get this invitation and I'm like, okay, of course I'm going. I'm honored to be invited. Like I'm going to show up. So I see the invitation and I decide, okay, I'm going to go. And I show up to the quinceañera at the time that was on the invitation. That was my first mistake. I showed up on time. What I learned was when I showed up on time, I was the only one there. The only one. I sat at a table that was set for 10 people by myself for 45 minutes. I was the only one in the entire place. And they kind of came over to me and they offered me food because I was there. And so I was like, yes, thank you for the food. And I just sat at the table by myself and ate my food by myself for 45 minutes. And after about 45 minutes, people started trickling in. And I was like, okay, like, was I too early? What happened? Like I showed up on time. And so after all of this goes through and I finally, everything starts getting settled at the party and I was able to walk up to her and I said, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really enjoying myself. I really appreciate this. I'm honored to be here. I know this is a big deal for you and it's a big step for you and what's important to you. And I said, hey, so what did I show up to her? Like the time said, 6 o'clock. And she said, oh yeah, you should never show up on time to a quinceañera. And I was like, she goes, yeah, you show up 45 minutes to an hour late, period. And that allowed me to realize, okay, this is an opportunity for me to learn something new and a new culture and a new thing that's important to her. And through that experience, I was able to, the next time I was invited to a quinceañera, I showed up 45 minutes late and everything was beautiful and it was fantastic and I got to enjoy it and I wasn't awkward and it was just a unique experience and a very, very fun time and something that I was honored to be a part of and I never forgot. And it's just carried on with me since that moment of getting to experience the important parts of other people's lives and being there for those times. So.
Great story. Here's the thing about relating to human stories. Because even though I've never been to a quinceañera, I've definitely been in situations like that where I went to something for the first time and I didn't know something everyone else in that room knew, right? And that's how you learn. That's how you make a fool out of yourself. Like the first time I went to yoga, it was the same thing. The first time I do anything new, you're always gonna make a fool out of yourself. And that's okay, because through that experience you learn, and the next time you don't do that anymore.
Hi, I am Mukaddes. After graduating from university, I started working a corporate company in Istanbul, a big metropolis in Turkey. That year, my grandfather died suddenly of a heart attack. I loved my grandfather very much. He was very special to me. It was the first time someone in my family had passed away. I went to my hometown for the funeral. I cried all the way. And the night my grandfather passed away, all my family and close relatives stayed at our house. We supported each other until that day. I didn't think of getting married and having a family. I wanted to make a career in a big company in Istanbul. That night, I realized that would come to all of us, and that we could suddenly lose our loved ones. And I realized it would be great for a family to share these sad sides of life. And that day, I decided to return from the big city and start a family and live a more independent life. I have never regretted this decision. Now I have a sweet 4-year-old son and a husband who has always supported me. We live in a cute seaside town and we are very happy. I think being a family makes you feel so powerful, I think.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's no assignments, no meetings this week. Next Sunday is when week one, brand new quarter is going to start. Enjoy the rest of your break this week. Remember, week one, quarter starts next Sunday. No matter what, we always have Sunday service, so don't forget. So next week, I'm going to start a new quarter. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be bright. I'm so excited to share all this exercise with you. So thank you so much for joining today. I had a lot of fun hearing all of your stories. I'll see you all next week. Bye. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
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 Cheers.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
Alex.
Bye, Rob.
Adios.